Welcome to another episode of Mulling It Over with Brandon Mull, and we are joined again with Christopher Paolini. Thanks for being here. We didn't scare you away last time, so that's good.
No, happy to be back.
Yeah, it's been a long time for us. We release these every a couple times a month, so they're like 2 weeks apart, and we don't pretend like we didn't record these back to back, and so that's just that's the reality. We're not hiding anything from anybody. So thanks for being here with us again. We're going to talk a little bit today about relationships in writing, and Brandon was talking to me a little bit about the one of the things he loved most about Eragon was that relationship between a boy and a dragon, and what that relationship looked like. I think Brandon's exact words were, that relationship is exactly what you want that relationship to be. And so, Christopher, tell me a little bit about building that relationship and kind of what you went through to create that relationship for us.
Well, it's very kind of you to say that, Brandon. The funny thing is that it was the relationship between Kendra and Seth in Fablehaven that drew me into that book, because having had growing up with a sister of my own, I was always annoyed by how siblings were so often betrayed in popular media. And when I read Fablehaven, I was like, this relationship I like this. They support each other. They don't always agree, but they support each other. And that's why I ended up reading that book in literally one sitting.
Wow. Yeah.
Finished at like 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning, and then immediately had to get the rest of them, at least the ones you'd published at that point.
Yeah. That's a good sign. That's great.
Boy.
But you make a good point here. Let's pause to address the point,
Yeah.
which is that what pulled you in to the story was the relationship, right? And it is with characters and relationships that we put life into the story and give readers something to care about. And for me, when I was reading Eragon, like, it was that relationship between Eragon and Saphira that was like it was part wish fulfillment. It felt real enough. You know what I mean? Like where I didn't need much else in that story to be cool, and plenty else was, but you already had me with that relationship with the boy and the dragon. So that was partly why I wanted to hit this topic with you, because I thought you did it really well.
Well, thank you. I don't really have a great answer for you with Aragon and Saphira, because it came, of all the things in that book, that was the one that probably came the easiest, because it was the one I wanted the most, and perhaps that's because when you're going through adolescence, people often feel misunderstood, or you're struggling to understand the change your body's going through. You're struggling to understand your new position in life, going from being a child to an adult, which, especially in modern culture, is a very extended process. And so this idea of having a dragon who, hears your thoughts, feels your feelings, can understand you on a very deep level, and is going to share that experience with you, and can fly and breathe fire and eat anyone you don't like, was pretty appealing. And the tone then with Saphira was the only thing I thought about a little bit. It's like, there's a bit of maternal instinct there on her part, but she's still very young herself, and it just, what can I say? That one came very easily. And it's interesting because I've seen other people attempt to write Saphira's voice. Not fan fiction, but other writers for screenplays and things like that. And what comes so easily to me with that character is harder for other writers, which I find interesting. And of course, I'm sure that's just personal background and all of that.
What are some of the defining characteristics of her voice? What makes it so easy for you?
I think it's a combination of deep love for Aragon, a little bit of maternal instinct, which comes out of that, arrogance, because she is a dragon, and a very deep awareness of sort of the savage nature of nature, if that makes sense. When you have to get your food by catching your food with your mouth, it tends to give you a very earthy perspective on life. And then a little intangible something that I would say is like kind of like the mythic magical quality of dragons themselves, that is kind of why we all enjoy reading about them, that goes back to all the old myths and legends. So that's kind of the stew that I have in my head when I'm thinking about her.
When you're writing her dialogue, do you do voices out loud? Do you say the line and try to do that,
No,
or
not
anything
not
like
with,
that happen?
not with her, not with her.
Or some villains?
I don't feel like I can do her justice with my voice, so I never do her
Yeah.
voice out loud. But I'll do
You're
other
like you're like crawling around like Benedict Cumberbatch.
I should do that.
Cameras
Freak
on
my
your
kids
head.
out.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Do you do voices, Brandon, when you
No,
like?
never.
You never say these things out loud when you're typing and going.
Unless
like,
I'm reading them to my kids, I don't. Which I think there's some benefit in it, because sometimes as I read it out loud to my kids or something, I will notice things that bug me, or I will hear things a little differently. So I think there could be value in it. I haven't made that a practice though.
Have you ever tried dictating your writing? I know Kevin J. Anderson does that.
I have not. I have gotten so used, like, and this is weird, Christopher, because I'm a hunt and peck typist. I've never gotten formal typing down. So I'm a speedy hunt and peck typist, but I'm like a 2 or 3 finger typer. Every novel I've written, I've written like that. But I find that I'm fast enough doing it that it's about the pace I'm composing at. So it doesn't really hamper me, like if I was a 120 word a minute guy, I don't think my brain's moving that fast. You know what I mean? So, but I haven't tried that. I would be interested to see what it would be like. But for me, writing has become like that pace of me entering words. It's just become that because I've done it so much. But I'm sure I could find a different way. Have you experimented with that, or tell me about it?
Well, I mean, I've tried writing a couple different ways. Like, I wrote half of a good chunk of Eragon was written by hand because I didn't really have access to a computer, and then I was able to get on, I was able to get on the computer
I thought
after
you were a
about.
nepo baby. You didn't have a computer?
Yeah, that's very monk-like kind of, right?
Well, and the problem is the computer we had was a Mac Classic with upgraded RAM, so it had 2 megabytes of RAM. And that meant that the file size for Eragon was too big to open on the computer in one chunk, so I had to divide the book into 2 files.
Gosh.
But I learned to type
simpler times.
I learned to type by inputting about 80 pages of handwriting for Eragon.
Wow.
What was I going to say? So you know what? So I wrote about half of Brissinger, my 3rd book, with a dip pen on parchment paper because I was being pretentious.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny.
I've written with typewriters. I've done everything, and I've tried dictation. And what I find is, for me, with my brain, if I try dictating, I don't like breaking the flow of my speech, and so I end up adding lots of extra clauses in order to keep things moving, and as a result, the sentences bloat, and it does not work particularly well for me. I also find that my sentences get much longer when I write by hand for some reason. In fact, they become positively Victorian for whatever reason.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
And I think it's similar because I just like the physical motion of the pen moving. I don't want to stop it. So that's actually why I was doing it, was to force myself through a first draft. It's like, just keep the pen moving, keep the pen moving.
Do you still have the parchment? Do you still have the parchment that you wrote on?
In fact, they had a chunk of it displayed in the Sci-Fi Fantasy Museum in Seattle for a while, along with, I have this blotter board that I was doodling on whenever I was just thinking about what I was trying to write. And so the whole thing is covered in like these insanely tiny doodles and curly cues and words. It's kind of looks like an insane person was writing. But it makes me.
Oh yeah, go. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask you: have you tried writing like by actual publishable prose by hand, or in any other way except on the computer?
No, like since I became a professional author, by then that habit had formed. You know what I mean? Because I didn't break through till I was about 30, and so by the time I was 30, I was just used to doing everything on a computer. It was just what I did, you know. But like now, I'm thinking all sorts of wonderful things. Like maybe what I need to do is tell like my publisher, like my next book is going to be so much better if you will let me write it on a pirate ship. Like with a plume, you know what I mean? Because the funny thing is, I bet it would come out different if you made the environment that quirky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, did you find it? You already told us you found it coming out different when you wrote with a pen because you wanted it to keep flowing, right?
Yeah, and one of the things I really kind of regret about using the computer is, okay, so here's the pros. For working on a large manuscript, it's indubitably faster. You know, you can have jumping around in the manuscript, moving things around, editing. It is faster, and it's almost a necessity in today's world. The publishers
cut and paste, all that stuff, right?
Yeah. My editor was one of the last editors still working pen on paper, and even with her, Random House finally forced her to move over to track changes. So it is what it is these days. But there are so many distractions on the computer. And that is it's a real problem, quite honestly. And I've looked at there's a device called a Free Writer, which has like a typewriter keyboard, and then it's got a little e-ink screen that you can type on. And I know there's a couple of published writers who use them. The problem is there's a real delay between you hit the key and the letter appearing, and that bothers my brain.
Yeah, I bet. That would bother me too.
I looked at going and writing on my iPad using a Bluetooth keyboard, and the problem is, weirdly enough, I mean, I cannot believe this. And also, this is the first time I've ever mentioned this in public, so you guys have a little bit of a little scoop here. So every single publicly available writing program for the iPad has a problem with it, and it's a different problem with each of the programs. So if you try MS Word, for whatever reason, there's a little delay between typing and the letters appearing. They've added some sort of little animation. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I can feel it in my brain. It's annoying. And what I want in a writing environment is I want to be able to customize the color of the font. I want to be able to customize the color of the background, because I like writing with a green text, black background. I find it easier with my eyes for long, especially if I'm writing at night.
Yeah. You're Neo.
Yeah, and I need to have bold, underline, italic. I need to have that sort of formatting. So there's a great program for iOS called Simple Text, which gives you a focus mode. And I need a focus mode, so it hides all the menus. So all you see is the text.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that would be nice.
So I can get that on Word on my desktop or my laptop, but you can't do it on the iPad, and it doesn't hide all the menus. Same for Google Docs. It doesn't hide all the menus. Pages can't hide all the menus, even though Pages will let you customize everything. You can minimize, you can't hide them all. And then there's this great program called Simple Text, which lets you hide everything, but it is it's plain text, so you can't italicize, you can't bold, you can't. And I do not want to have a 300-page manuscript where I have to go in and manually add all the italics after the fact. So I've actually been working with a dev team on writing, on creating a custom writing app, a stripped-down writing app.
That's funny.
Hopefully we can launch at some point. But I mean, simply because there isn't what I want out there, and I figure I can't be the only one, because ultimately I would love to just like ditch the laptop, ditch the desktop, take my iPad, go outside and sit there and have a little Bluetooth keyboard and be able to write, and it's almost like a page of paper in front of me when it's vertical, and compose that way and get away from the internet.
Look, I love it. Yeah, let me know if you make it, because I would be interested. That's pretty cool. Yeah, like me and you, we'll have 2 users, but
yeah. No, and it's probably important also to say for anyone watching this that these are just our experiences, and it's different for every writer. Whatever we're saying works for us may not work for someone watching, and don't take this as the word of God.
Yeah, and if you're developing one, are you developing one that will only work the way you want it, or are you making it as customizable as possible so that the most amount could use it?
Well, I don't want to throw an absolute fortune at it, so I'm not going to. I mean, ideally, yes.
Only green text.
No. It should be that you can customize the appearance however you want, but it's not going to have all the features of something like MS Word, because that would probably take, a couple $1 million to develop, and that's more. I don't think the market's there to justify that sort of price point or investment at the moment. But
so, Christopher, back to Saphira, right? Because I'm gonna make you dig a little bit more on relationships, but not necessarily on this one, because I think I might have this one figured out. Because I think what's going on with Eragon and Saphira is that it probably was wish fulfillment for you.
Oh, absolutely.
So you knew how you wanted this to feel, because in your heart of hearts, you wanted to have this adventure. And part of what drew you to writing this was that relationship that would be so fun. And so that grew very organically without a lot of calculation. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So what are the relationships that you had to be more deliberate about? Because, obviously a book has a host of relationships, which includes enemies and frenemies and friends and family and definitely in Eragon, there's a lot of complicated relationships and people that you don't know who they are until you get later into the story. And how do you tackle? Because look, I think in real life we are individual people, and you're right about that, Brandon. No, it's but in life we're individual people, and I think every relationship that I have is almost like its own thing. Right? Like there's my relationship I have with Jason, that there's this thing that exists if it's just me and Jason that doesn't exist anywhere else in my life. And then if I add in Christopher Paolini with Jason, there's a new thing going on here. Like a new, and if we spent a bunch of time together, this new thing would develop that would be Christopher, Jason, and Brandon. And this happens in families, and this happens like each relationship is almost its own entity, right? Mm-hmm. And when we create a story, we've got a host of characters, and then just as important, a host of relationships. And so my question is, how do you tackle these relationships? So I know that the relationships are so key. As the characters matter more to each other, they matter more to the reader. As the relationships feel authentic, it pulls the reader in. How are we, what are some of the things you think about on that topic?
You know what's so interesting about this is when I was a younger reader, let's say teens, especially early to mid-teens, I thought I was more interested in story than character.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to know what happens next. But of course,
me too.
The reason you want to know what happens next is because you care about the characters. And
exactly.
If you think about some of the most successful franchises and properties in history are based around a character who actually doesn't change. Like James Bond or Hercule Poirot, or the character is sort of this static thing, and you can put all these different stories around the character, but the character is interesting and appealing enough that people just want to see them again and again and again in these different situations. So is character everything? Maybe not, but even Shakespeare, he did was it Henry V or Henry VIII, where he had wow, my brain is fried out today. I do apologize. But he literally took one of his famous Falstaff. He took Falstaff, who was so popular, and then went and wrote an entirely different play about Falstaff just because that one character was so popular.
Funny, yeah.
One can argue the success of that, but, the character sort of superseded the original play in a sense. So I guess the way I would think about it these days is if you have to, in terms of hierarchy of importance with storytelling, story is more important than prose. You can fix bad prose, but you almost can't fix a bad story. So you need a good structure, you need a good story, and you can always fix your prose if you have to.
Yeah.
And then character is right there with story, because you could have a wonderful story that's really interesting, but if you don't care about the characters, and you could say they're inseparable, and I know I'm rambling, but I think about this a lot. It might almost be inseparable. Can you have an interesting story with bland characters. I'm not sure if you can.
No, I don't think you can. I think
Yeah.
it's a necessary ingredient, right?
Because what happens changes who the characters are, and then who the characters are determines what they do, which changes what happens. So whether you start as a character-based writer or a story-based writer, if you're being honest about the material, you ought to meet in the middle ultimately.
Yeah.
So
yeah, go on.
So to answer your question then, to answer your question about how I think about this, I'm always thinking about what it is the characters want and what it is they need, which are two different things. Eragon wants to kill the evil king and make sure the land is free and all of that, but what he needs is to grow up. What he needs is to be a good partner to Saphira. What he needs is to learn wisdom and maturity. And then what do the other characters want and need, and then how does that reflect around the themes of the story, which in the case of the inheritance cycle is inheritance and growing up and maturation. The character relationship I had the greatest trouble with was Eragon's relationship with the elf Arya, because the one thing a 15-year-old homeschooled boy is a 100-year-old elven princess. and I had no romantic experience when I started those books, and trying to navigate Eragon's feelings with regard to Arya, and then because I write so strongly in close third-person point of view, I'm really there with the feelings and the thoughts of the main character, and it can lead me to being blindsided as to what the other character is thinking and feeling outside of the main character. And that's actually something I do these days, is I'll go through my outline, or I'll go through my story, and I will say, okay, if I were telling this from the point of view of the bad guy or the best friend or the sidekick or whomever else, would they still behave the same way I have them behaving now? So it's not just for the benefit of the main character. What would they actually do for themselves? And then how is everyone feeling in relation to each other? I mean, it's like a bunch of teeter-totters. Everyone's affecting everyone else, and everyone feels something else. And I'm not saying I'm the best writer at this. I'm not. There's a lot of better writers than me. And you can write a book that's just character studies and goes deep into these feelings and relationships, but then you need something to happen as well. You need your story.
Yeah. Look, part of the fun of wrestling with these questions is that nobody's perfect at it. You know what I mean? And so hearing about the wrestle is probably more useful for any writer than hearing this perfect, simple, pat answer. You know what I mean? Like in my experience, to create good relationships is very challenging. It's challenging for a reason that you named so well, which is that I am trying to inhabit the point of view of many when I'm just one. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to be in those different point of views and see all of what each character would want and need and be experiencing, and knowing I can't see it all and trying my best to create the illusion that I can, you know?
So regardless of what initially inspires a character for you, whether it's someone you know or, whatever else it might be,
sure,
what do you feel like you need to have in your head in order to successfully write a character?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Look, what you said about understanding what they want and understanding what they need is a very good example into the better you know the character, the better you can write them. And so for me, it's all about, if you knew what they wanted and what they needed, I mean, good heavens, I don't usually know that about myself. You know what I mean? I can tell you what I want more than I can tell you what I need. You know what I mean? Like maybe on a good day, I'll get some insight on what I really need, right? But most of the time, I'm only super aware of what I want. And so, like, if I can muster the empathy to see that in a character, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see, I want that character to feel knowable to me. I want to feel like I understand them well enough that I can then produce the reactions they would have. And so whatever makes them knowable to me, like Sanderson will talk about having a bunch of sliders of like on the slider of cowardice and brave, where are they? Are they an 8? Are they a 2? Right? Like how cowardly, how brave?
That sounds like a very Sanderson thing to say.
It is a Sanderson thing to say. It's totally like, and so it's not exactly that, but it's like that, right? Like it's, I want to know, is this guy a lot of me coming up was writing skits. Like I wrote comedy skits in college. I ran a comedy troupe, and there you had to know enough about the character to find the funny in the character, right? Like, and find out like what makes this character funny, and that alone can be fun for any character. Like, take any of the characters you've ever made, and ask yourself what's funny about them, and like what's accidentally funny, what's on purpose funny. And suddenly you're seeing deeper into the character. And there are so many questions like that you can ask, and you're just doing your best to ask as many of those questions as you can, so that you kind of get a feeling, like, so that kind of like you and Saphira, you almost can't explain what you think about when you write her, because you know her and you're like, well, I just write what she would say because I've come to know her so well. That's me and Seth. Like, if you're like, what do you think about for writing Seth? It started out thinking about my recklessly curious younger brother, but then that evolved into a character that is a mix of really curious and sometimes reckless and sometimes very conscientious and very brave. And like this isn't somebody who's reckless without caring about the damage they cause. This is somebody who's weirdly both conscientious but also sometimes causing damage, and all the complexities of that person is something I just kind of intuit now. I feel him. I know that he's going to do stupid things sometimes, and I also know he'll feel bad about them if they blow up in his face. You know what I mean? And he'll risk his life to try to set it right. Like, he cares. Like he's reckless and he cares, and that's what part of what makes him interesting. You know.
You know, when I wrote my sci-fi novel To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, one of the things that I didn't like writing it was, because it's more of a standalone, is how you just don't get to know characters the same way when you don't live with them for book after book. And I think readers often feel the same way. I got to the end of the book and I felt like, well, I'm just getting started with these characters. But to go back to what you're saying, you know, I'd also say the two other questions I found very helpful with understanding a character are also, what do they find funny? What do they laugh at? Yeah. And what do they cry at? And what are they scared of? Because so much of, you know, how we respond to things are based off of, you know, stuff that happened to us when we were growing up that shaped our basic responses. Is like, you know, you get one person who, you know, they tense up and they get frightened when they hear a screech of tires, because maybe they saw an accident when they were a kid. Or you get another person who, you know, gets real squirrely around when they start thinking about money, because maybe money was really tight when they were growing up. Or someone who's, you know, the list goes on and on. But I feel like if I know what makes someone laugh, and I know what makes someone scared, and I know what makes someone sad, which is different than scared, and of course wants and needs, I usually have a pretty good feel for how they're going to react. I just wrote something from the point of view of the character of Murtagh, who's Eragon's half brother, and I wrote it and I got like 2 paragraphs down, and I was just looking back at it. It was a reaction he had to some physical danger, and I said, wait a minute, that's how Eragon would react. That's not Murtagh, that's Eragon. No. Good. Go back and fix that.
So smart. That's the kind of catching ourselves that we need to do, because we sometimes can slide into a default response for a character when it should be specific, right? Like my wife will call me out if I slide into a default voice. You know, if I maybe I write a little side character and I'll just like slide into kind of a default, like won't think hard about it and just kind of go to my default voice for that character. She'll be like, well, no, there's a chance to make that person somebody. Make them somebody. Don't just make them like, don't do default voice Brandon or whatever, you know?
Do you find it harder to maintain a specific tone or voice, either for a character or the work as a whole, the longer the book goes on? Like, is it easier if it's shorter, or does it get easier if it's longer because you have more time to live with it?
For me, it gets easier as it's longer. For me, I'm good at gradually getting more in sync. Like when I've written longer series, and you know, my longest series would be the 5 Fablehaven books, which are followed by 5 Dragon Watch books. That's the same main characters. So for 10 books, I shepherded the same main characters through a bunch of adventures. And for me, I thought it got easier. Like, I thought it got easier to get in sync. But one of the things that's horrible about us as writers is when we know what our characters fear, then we're like, yeah, that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're like the worst in that way, because you're like when you know some of the things that'll be really triggering, we're like, we need lots of that. Isn't that monstrous of us?
I think that's what makes it so interesting too, when you can throw that at your characters.
You got to throw stuff at them. Yeah, what are we going to say, Jason?
Oh, I was just going to ask about roles as well, because sometimes a character plays a specific role in a story, but sometimes, and it could be a leader role, and then all of a sudden they're with a character where they're subservient, right, and stuff, and so their characters become different depending on what role they're playing within a party or a group or a situation. It could be a family dynamic. How much do you use that to kind of poke the fences of where these characters are and who they actually are?
I mean, it can be a useful tool.
It's smart, Jason. I mean, I almost wish I used it more. As you say it, I can see the possibilities of it, right? Like very fun to see, like, Darth Vader getting scolded by his mom or something. You know what I mean? Like I know his mom's dead or whatever, but like that kind of thing, like some big bad villain who then has but if there's some environment where he's no longer,
you do see it with Darth Vader too, where he's the big bad guy, and then all of a sudden he's kneeling before the Emperor.
Emperor, yes. Suddenly he's humble in that room.
I've always had this weird desire to see characters, and obviously this doesn't actually necessarily work for the stories that you'd tell with these characters, but to take characters completely out of the setting that made them what they are. Like, Spider-Man is suddenly in West Texas or Kansas, where it's flat as a pancake and there's no buildings around to sling webs from. What does Spider-Man do now? Or the alien from the Alien movies is now in a sunny field of daffodils. Like, could you make that creepy and scary? Actually, it could probably be really unsettling. But I like those sorts of disjunctions, those incongruous, when it's incongruous.
It would be a very, almost like Marvel's missing a trick if they don't at some point get Spider-Man into a field where he just looks around and he's like, crap. I'm going to be walking.
Jason, going back to kind of what you were saying, though, a little more directly, because I've been writing about Eragon again recently for this collection of short stories, and one of the reasons I haven't really gone back to write a full novel with Eragon is I told the story I wanted to tell with him as a character, and he had his journey, he had his transformation, and revisiting him now in this collection, he's in a different role. He's in a leadership role. He's the mentor in authority in some ways, and he's in a static place now. He's not traveling around across the world to save the land from an evil, a great threat. He's doing something else, and it's different. It's really different. Yeah. He's still the same person, but context has completely shifted around him, and of course, he has to shift in response to it.
In a way, the worst thing we can do for a character is to let them be happy. like
Robin Hobb has internalized that.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of why it's so definitive that when you say happily ever after, that's the death note of the story. It's done. If they're happy and content, or if they're too static, we have to work harder to find story there. You know what I mean? It's when we're challenged, it's when we're strained, it's when we're flying by the seat of our pants and in over our heads that story makes us lean forward and get on the edge of our seats.
But the other thing is, as you get older, you realize nothing is static. You think maybe, perhaps when you're younger, it's like, well, I'm going to go to school, I'll graduate school, I'll get a job, maybe I'll have a family, and that's life. Well, that's what you think, but
right.
Having a family, having a job is going to completely change your life, and then you probably get a different job, and then the kids, if you have kids, they're growing up and changing. Nothing ever stays the same for longer than maybe 3 to 5 years max.
Yeah, well, that's the world we live in, and maybe that's why we're so used to stories needing change, because the world we live in is a world where you are becoming an older man, if nothing else, every day, right?
Yeah.
And your kids are changing as they get older, and your circumstances are changing. And if you have a job, there's little stresses that come up and little adventures that you have, and like that's part of what makes life interesting. Like you almost wouldn't have it any other way. You know, like if I get on a vacation and all I do is sit, I'm bored in half an hour. You know what I mean? Like I need something to happen, right? So I got to go make something happen, or I get bored.
Speaking of changes, I know both of you are in the middle of watching some of your books being adapted to TV or film. What is that process like for both of you? Where are you at in that process? How is it? I know some of you have done a little bit of the writing or are reviewing writing of your characters by other people. Just talk to me about both of your projects going on right now and what that experience is like for you guys.
Well, Brandon, I'm super curious about yours. So you've got a film adaptation going on? Is it an indie production? Is it with a studio? What's the story?
Yeah, here's the latest thing. So Fablehaven has almost gotten made so many times in so many places, with almost being the key word, right? It gets optioned. It like seems like there's an excited team. And then, you know, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out, which is common in Hollywood. This happens. But right now we've got these guys it's an independent team, and they're linked with Angel Studios to do the distribution. And so Angel Studios are the guys that did like the Chosen series, and they did the Tim Ballard movie or whatever, the one with like son of a gun, what's it even called? Sound of Freedom, right? Which that was like a $250 million movie, right? So they've had some real success, and they're trying to parlay that into making a family-friendly fantasy, which is Fablehaven, that they picked to try to see if they can pull off. And so for me, it's exciting because these guys, their reputation is family-friendly. And to me, that's a huge part of what I want for the brand. And there have been a lot of forces in Hollywood when they've had their hands on it that wanted to almost kill that side of the story, which to me is the most important side of this. Like, it's like what makes it fit its audience, kind of, you know? And so the fact that these guys have a screenplay that's really faithful to the story, and I know that they're not going to try to like make it too, like, it's only realistic if he's on drugs or something. You know what I mean? Like, which I've literally had conversations about that with people. I was like, really? Were you on drugs when you were 11? You know what I mean?
Actually, they probably were.
Yeah, maybe they were, right? That might be the issue. But like, I feel like it's got a good team. I feel like it's in a place where they will try really hard to do a faithful job. They've got just enough muscle that they could probably pull it off if they can make a good movie. They've got the clout to distribute it. So
and do they have enough budget to do the effects they're going to need to do?
Well, here's the thing. I think barely. You know what I mean? like it's the first Fablehaven book has the least amount of big set pieces, right? I mean, right. we need a giant cow, we need some demons, we need some fairies, we need, you know, but it's not too crazy. I mean, we're at Grandma and Grandpa's house, which is surrounded by this secret wildlife park for magical creatures, and it's not like non-stop dragons or something in the first book, right? So the whole ballet will be, can they do really well the stuff that they do, and make their budget stretch to the point where, and it's not like it's a super low budget, but it's on the low side for a big fantasy movie. You know what I mean? Like a big fantasy movie just takes money, right? And so yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I'm excited about the screenplay. I'm excited about the goal and mission of the studio, and then if they can just
are they
in
production? Are they in pre-production? Where are you at in the stage?
Yeah, they're trying to cast the lead adult roles right now. Like that's where we're at.
So you're in full on pre-production.
Yeah. Like if they get those cast, they want to shoot in the fall. I mean, like they've got everything else ready to go.
Nice.
They're just trying to slot in the right actors. So we'll see if they can pull it off.
Have you done any writing, or are you just providing feedback and notes and that sort of thing on the screenplay?
I'm a paid consultant on the project. and so, which is nice because I haven't always been that, right? So I'm a paid consultant, which means I'm giving feedback on everything, and they use me like a story bible, and they're very communicative. It's been that part of it has been the best experience I've had so far. Like where I'm involved. I'm not the guy writing the screenplay, but there were moments that I thought we could do like a little cooler here or there, and they were so open to it, and we did make it cooler. So I'm on the creative direction of it. I'm totally excited. If they can cast the right people, if they can pull off the effects they want to pull off, they think they can. I have reason to hope they can, and we'll see what happens.
How does it feel reading someone else writing your characters?
Look, usually it bugs me because sometimes they get certain things kind of off, but on this particular screenplay, they're really close. Like this one's in harmony with, like, at least for me, it's a good adaptation. It's in harmony with who they are. And so it's always a little weird, and they'll try some different jokes and stuff like that, but yeah, like I think this is a recognizable Kendra and Seth, a recognizable Grandma and Grandpa, recognizable Fablehaven, where as long as they can pull off the look of everything, they'll have a good movie. Yeah, I think. So tell me, where are you at? What's going on, Christopher?
Well, it's been a long process because after the Eragon film was made, it turned a profit. It turned enough of a profit that News Corp, which owns Fox, listed it as one of 3 films it listed in their earnings report for that year. But it wasn't enough to overcome the embarrassment of the reception. Let's put it that way. So, but then Fox just kept sort of circling around about considering a remake for a long time. And around the time when Inheritance came out, which was 2011, Fox actually asked my sister and me to write a screenplay adaptation of the second book, but to treat the second book as if the first movie didn't exist. So basically reboot the series with the second book, which is kind of
a tall order.
It's a tall order. We did a decent screenplay, but it probably would have cost $200 million to film because of the amount of stuff that had to be in it.
And it's kind of illogical. Like it's like if you're going to start over, right?
Yeah. So we've been, and then of course there was changes of leadership at Fox, and then Fox ended up getting bought by Disney. That had to sort of shake out, and so there was a lot of uncertainty for a long time because and back then, at least, television really wasn't an option for adapting something like Eragon. The special effects were too onerous. It couldn't be done.
Yeah, it would have looked horrible back then.
Yeah, well, and I will say too, audiences today are, especially younger audiences, don't know how good they have it in some ways.
They're so spoiled.
I'll see people complaining about the special effects on some television show about how cheap they look, and I'll see a clip or something. I'm like, those effects look better than films looked back in the 90s. Like, right, you don't know how this stuff is so good now. Anyway, so short version is we spent a long time trying to find a showrunner to do a television adaptation for Disney Plus. We ended up getting a showrunner, and then it's Todd Harthan. He ran Psych back in the day, and then most recently he's been running High Potential, which has been a big hit. And now he's done other stuff, but that's what he's best known for. Now he's the main showrunner, and then co-show running with him is a guy called Todd Helbing, who did I think he did he was on Flash and the recent Superman show, and he did Forward Unto Dawn with his brother, which was a Halo miniseries movie. So we've got a good team. And I'm executive producing, and then I'm co-writing. So Harthan and I did the first 2 scripts, and then Helbing and another writer, Carrie, did the 3rd script, and then I've had a lot of input on that as well. So we're at the point now where Disney's about to do their pickups for new shows this month or first week of next month, I think. And we've done a ton of work. We had a 10-week writer's room. Which was my first weekly salary paycheck I've ever had in my life.
Funny, because funny.
I was considered one of the staff writers for legal reasons for that writing room, and yeah, so all the materials getting put before Disney. They're doing a detailed budget breakdown, and either we get the green light or we don't at this point. That's which to get to this point has been such a fight.
Yeah.
If we'd been like a year or two faster getting into this process, we would have already been greenlit because, all the big studios were greenlighting stuff left and right. Now the market has contracted with streaming, and so everyone's a little more nervous. But Disney's had a big hit with the Percy Jackson show. They want something that's the next step up in terms of age bracket, something that's a little more four-quadrant, because Percy skews a little younger than they would really like, I think. But they don't, for branding reasons, they don't want to go full, House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, nor do I, for that matter. So Eragon's right in that slot.
Yeah, it should be in the sweet spot of what you're describing, right?
And I'll say it's been a huge learning experience for me. I mean, I've done screenwriting professionally before, nothing that's been made, but this one I've really gotten to work with someone who's been, done this for 25 some years professionally himself and been a showrunner. And it's just the best way to learn how to write is to work with someone who knows their stuff. I've had that on the book side of things, and now I'm having this on the screenwriting thing. And it's great. And I've been able to hopefully bring a lot of the voice of the characters and the knowledge of the world, just as you have. And he brings a lot of information about how television scripts need to work in order to actually work. But yeah, it's probably cost me at least one book, maybe two books, with the amount of revisions we've had to do over the last 2 years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is what it is.
It would cost time. It would cost time, but it's a cool project. That's exciting. And that's cool that you're so deeply involved. That's really cool.
Well, my logic with it was, A, it's something I wanted to learn how to do to a greater degree. So there's that part. But B, since the first adaptation wasn't particularly successful in a creative sense, I just, this is my life's work in a lot of ways. When I die, doesn't matter what else I write in my life, when I die, it's going to say, here lies the author of Eragon. That's dragon with an E on it. And so I figured I'm going to give this everything I have. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to feel bad about it because there's nothing else I could have given it creatively.
That makes tons of sense.
Yeah. If Disney flips the switch on this, then the whole giant machine moves into motion, and we're off to the races.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good. I hope it turns out awesome.
Same for you as well.
It's got that potential. So I would love to see it.
Well, I mean, I think Fablehaven moves in a lot of the same circles Eragon does, and it's a little younger, but not a huge amount. And there is a serious lack of good family-friendly entertainment out there. Yeah. So I think your instincts on that front are correct. And, if it turns out the way you hope, that's the sort of movie I'd take my kids to.
Right. I think there's a lot of people that would come to it if we can get it right,
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Christopher, thanks for being here for the last couple of weeks with us and sharing your insight. Congratulations on all the success on your career, and we wish you the most success with future books and projects. Anything you want to tell us about or plug before we sign off?
Well, if anyone wants to find me online, my main website is paolini.net. If you're interested in my sci-fi work, it's fractalverse.net. And of course, you can find me on all the usual social media platforms. Just search for Christopher Paolini or Paolini and I'll pop right up. But Brandon, I got to ask, when's the sequel to your new book coming out? When can we expect that?
Oh, for the next Guardians book? Is that what you're saying?
When's it pubbing?
It's basically a year from now. So it's Random House is making me get everything done a year ahead of time, which is good for me because like for sure it's coming out on time because it's basically done. And it's so strong. I can't wait. I can't wait to share it because it's got just really good payoffs.
So this time you have to send it to me before it publishes so I can actually read it and say things about it online because I really enjoyed it.
I need to get blurbs from you. You haven't done the first one, have you? I probably need to send you that.
I didn't know it was coming out till you contacted me like the day it was the day before it was coming out.
Look, I'll get one sent your way and I'll get you the second one early next time. Yeah,
Awesome.
because this is a fun one. This is one where for all my friends, I'm like, okay, read this one. This one's cool.
Yeah,
This is about
it
as
really
good as I
is-
can do.
It really is great. I'm excited for you, Brandon, on those and seeing where it's going. So, well, we're gonna sign off now. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Mulling It Over with Brandon Mull.